Okay, we are going to be doing a live video demonstration of the ZuluSCSI having a problem with my Power Mac 9600. It's going to be kind of in stream format, so I do apologize if things are a little janky. So currently we have this thing plugged in to the 80 card, as we can see here, the SCSI ribbon kind of running into the card, and currently it's working perfectly fine. We do have the little tester right here. I'm going to boost my volume a little bit because I'm going to be across the room. But we do have the tester volume working perfectly fine. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and benchmark it real quick. Wrong utilities folder. And we can see 80 Technologies. There's our ZuluSCSI right there. I'll go ahead and get this a little more kind of faced in a favorable way. I do have my power bank powering it at the moment, just to make sure that power is not an issue. And run a test. Kind of hard to see, but it is actually running. Leave it at that zoom level. It is actually blinking, though this lighting in here is kind of drowning it out a little bit. And as we can see, the benchmark is going over perfectly fine. It is a little bit slower than I was expecting, though, because normally I get about 7 megabytes out of this thing on the 80 card, but it could also be up to the way I've got the cards situated in the 9600 itself with how the bus masters work and such like that. So the benchmark did complete perfectly fine. So we're going to go ahead and boot this thing from the ZuluSCSI. Zulu test right here. Restart. Not sure if I can angle this a little bit better, so you guys can kind of see what's going on here. Who knows, maybe that'll work. It's still kind of glaring a little bit. Zooming in just a little bit. Yeah, you can see it clear as day right there booting. So this is something only Bruce is going to understand, but this is the very same image I sent to you, so if you're playing along over there, yeah, this is the very exact same disk image I sent you that was previously empty, so... Because he is testing this alongside me, in a way, kind of. So, yeah. Multiple people trying to figure this problem out. So it's going to be a little slow on the boot because the SCSI is slower than SATA, but it should complete boot no problem. And there we go, we're booted from Zulu test. So, real quick, I'm going to fire up SCSI Director one more time. And we're going to be looking at the internal bus, just so you know, when we switch this thing over. You see that the only ID in use currently is ID 4. So this should be on ID 0 on the 80 bus. So I'm going to switch over. As we can see, the image is on ID 0. So when I move this to the internal bus, there should be no conflicts whatsoever. One last thing I want to also point out is the switch on there, I believe it's called SW1, triggers the Apple quirks, and I do have that turned on because I'm under the impression it is needed for this machine, but I will turn it off just to try it once when we switch back to the other bus. So, I'm going to go drive setup real quick, just to point out one more thing before we turn the machine off and switch to the bus. We scroll down here, we can see it's coming up as not initialized, but it is functioning. Not sure why that is, but it is what it is. Go ahead and shut the machine down. Disconnect from power. Pull this off the 80 card, and I'm going to put it onto the internal bus. And just make sure that's in there nice and snug. Power it up one more time. Just kind of get that to face you guys. Using the iPad. Yeah, that works. Okay, so now we're going to start off the internal bus. Keeping in mind that the image is assigned as ID 0. And the only ID in use is ID 4. Actually, I have forgotten a very critical error here. Been messing about with this so much. And actually unplug the zip drive just to isolate this. And also because the zip drive is terminated, I totally forgot. So let's try that one more time. My bad. So now there should be no conflicts whatsoever because there is nothing else on the internal bus other than the ZuluSCSI itself. You've not frozen yet? That's good. Give you guys a very close-up look if I can. So far, no freeze. That's good. And we do look to be booting perfectly fine. See how long this lasts, though. I sort of this is a case of like streamer luck, even though I'm not actually streaming. I'm gonna be pretty irritated about that. Oh, we may have just hung up. Hopefully we didn't. I mean, I say hopefully we didn't, but I mean, I want it to hang up because otherwise I wouldn't have a video thing here. But yeah, it may have just given up, and because that's the failure mode it'll sometimes have. It'll just freeze, the light will stay solid, and then it just gives up entirely. It's still powered off the power bank, and the power bank is still on. Let's see if I can get that up into the camera, but as we can see, the power bank is still on, so it is still drawing power. And the mouse is completely frozen. I'm actually moving it around and nothing is happening. So I'm going to give it a few to kind of see if it'll recover, but it's not looking too good. Let me see if I can get this on camera, but I am... move this over a little bit, see if I can actually get it on camera, but yeah, it's hard, but believe me, I am moving the mouse and nothing is happening. So I'm going to go ahead and give it the Macintosh flavored 3-finger salute. It's going to reboot. Pings the devices as per usual. I know some may see this and think that maybe the Mac is overheating for me not having the side door on, but I can tell you that is definitely not the case, because we just had it without the side door on, booting fine from the 8.0 card, and I've actually temp tested this thing while the door was off, and none of the components get really hot unless I actually put some load on them, as in like playing some games or something, so I do not think temperature is causing this thing to freeze up. So we're booting again. Now I can get this to boot if I bypass extension loading in this state, but that kind of leaves us with a gimped machine, which is not what we're trying to do here. So we do have mouse still. That's good. I'm just going to continue shifting the mouse around so we can tell at which point it does actually lock up. And we might complete boot this time. Wouldn't that be a miracle? But then we have another boss to worry about, which is getting to the desktop. Because I've had it complete boot, but then lock up it trying to load the desktop. I'm just shifting the mouse around. I'm not clicking it or anything. You might have just lost it. ZuluSCSI is having a moment right now. It looks like from the LED getting stuck. It wants to complete boot so bad, but it's I think it's going to give up in a minute. Come on, you're so close. Alright, I'm not going to jiggle the mouse anymore. It's starting to ache my hands. But this is another failure mode that I've come across where it'll just do this, and then the system won't do a complete and total crash. Like you can see, I can still jiggle the mouse around and it still responds. But for all intents and purposes, the ZuluSCSI has given up at this point. It doesn't want to go on. But the system is still partially there because I can still move the mouse. So I'm going to see if it fully gives up at any moment here, and then we'll reboot it once again. Still have mouse, so it hasn't fully given up yet. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and mercy kill this, and yeah, the ZuluSCSI is really, yeah, it crashed there for a minute, so I'm going to go ahead and, just for science, and this is not intended to be a blue SCSI is better kind of thing, it's kind of, again, doing this for science, and because I have one on hand, let's put an F4 on this in the same configuration with the very same image. And it should be, yeah, you guys can see that. Just to isolate what the problem is here. Now, it's very conceivable that this could actually not work because the ZuluSCSI's failed booting could have corrupted this a little bit. So if it doesn't work, then I'm going to pause this for a minute and we're going to go and recopy everything because when I use this, I just copied everything from my 8.6 SATA disk onto this SD card and did that. So I use the very same naming conventions as the blue SCSI for the ZuluSCSI because it will understand that. So this should just pick up the images and boot perfectly fine because it's the very same conventions. So there it goes. And we'll see if it manages to hit the desktop. That's going to be a fair bit slower because the ZuluSCSI F4, while a very good solution, is not the speed demon that the ZuluSCSI is. But as we can see, we've already started the boot process, and we're moving right along. I have noticed the desktop pattern didn't load. That's interesting. As we can see, we have completed boot, and the desktop should load in a moment here. And there's the very same image, the Zulu test image. So we can tell that it did in fact work. It's the very same image, but on a ZuluSCSI now. So go ahead and shut this down. So we verified that it works. So I'm going to try one more thing before we give up. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but there are a set of switches on here. And one of them, again, triggers Apple quirks and such. So I believe it's this last one here. I'm going to turn that off. And that should disable Apple quirks. And we've already verified that we do get termination power, so I'm not going to plug in the USB this time around. There we go. Same SD. And hopefully you guys can see that. Start again. I'm gonna do another reboot because I forgot to turn off the RAM check. Oh, my capture card is having a real fun time. Or the scaler is. That's no fun. Oh no, what has happened? Maybe I have to actually power it for once. Just cycle that real quick. This cheap thing actually finally die. As I'm trying to shoot this, that's kind of sad, but what can you do? Let's see if that... Yeah, that brought it back. Okay. That was fun. I don't want to do that again. But we are booting. Let's see if we can finish the boot. Oh, we might be in business. Or is he gonna stop at the exact same point? Come on, little Zulu, I believe in you. You can do it. Oh, we might be in business. Even if it hits the desktop, though, we are not out of the woods yet because we have to do a file copy and a test. And if it clears all that, then I will admit defeat on this issue and say, oh, well, okay, I didn't do my due diligence on this. But it looks like, unfortunately, we may have just hit a freeze point because, once again, the light has got stuck and the system is, yeah. I'm going to give it a few to kind of collect itself, see if it wants to continue, but it's not looking good. It had a hope spot for a minute there, but now it's kind of having some fun issues. Once again, a partial lockup. We still have mouse. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try one troubleshooting step that I did when I was working on my friend's SE. And we're going to go ahead and mercy kill this. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to just boot it without extensions this time, which should allow it to actually complete boot. Sometimes we get a lockup here, but thankfully it looks like that's not the case. And once it starts booting, I'm going to hold Command and Option. And what that will do is it will trigger a rebuild desktop, which I don't think it's going to help, but I've had it cause some nice issues when the desktop is kind of messed. So maybe, just maybe, it might do something here. We'll see what happens. It's having a moment, though. I think we just lost it. Nope, nope, there it goes. Okay. This should allow it to... Yeah, there we go. And now we can rebuild. Thing is having a time, though. Currently at 30 minutes almost. Alright. Successful rebuild on Zulu. Just gonna let do a rebuild on everything at this point, just in case. This should go by stupid fast because these are all SATA volumes. As we can see, something is just not quite right here. I think we froze again. But another partial freeze where we still have mouse. I can't click any buttons or do anything. I'm going to do one more mercy kill here. This time I'm going to hold the shift key to turn off all extensions. Now let's see if we manage to hit the desktop. And I think we've just hit another partial freeze. Again, I don't think it's going to take much to see that something's not quite right here. So I'm going to go ahead and, once again, mercy kill this thing, because it should already be booted by now, especially with extensions off. And just for good measure, we are going to put it back on the 80 card. And I'm going to try and find something to this to sit up where you guys can see it. That should be good. Once again, I have changed absolutely nothing about the configuration between moving it between the internal and 80 card. Looks like now we're actually having a problem on the ADO card as well, but then again, maybe what we did just a second ago caused us to start having issues. So it's very well that the data on the image was corrupted by our shenanigans earlier, but we did already verify before that yes, the ADO card does work perfectly fine before we moved it onto the internal bus. So yeah, that's really it. Not really much else to say. This is kind of my video as a bug report kind of thing, showing what I've done, verifying that this is in fact a problem with the ZuluSCSI. And if I actually roll back the firmware to the original 1.0 release, this should actually work perfectly fine. And in fact, I might just do another follow-up on that if I am asked to do so. So yeah, that's really it for this. Hopefully you enjoyed, followed along, whatever have you, and yeah, that's it. See you around.